After a toxic 2-year relationship with Bella, my first everything, I finally broke free. I always tried my best, I reflected, yet her lies and betrayal still haunt me. Now I'm dating casually and feel great, but why can't I shake the dreams of her? Help. Hello everyone, I am Luke, a 20-year-old male. I have been out of what I refer to as a toxic relationship for a year, and the more I share my experiences with my friends, the more I realize how damaging my past relationship was. This realization makes it increasingly difficult for me to move on. To set the context, I began dating my ex, Bella, when I was 17 and she was 16. We attended the same high school and had known each other for years, consistently flirting with the idea of a relationship since we were both attracted to each other. Bella was friends with my first girlfriend, Stella, which is how I met her. Bella started messaging me while I was still in a relationship with another girl. At that time, I was 14 and Bella was around 13 or 14. My conversations with her were purely platonic as they were with some of Stella's other friends, but Stella became upset when she discovered that I was in contact with Bella. In summary, that relationship ended because Stella began texting one of my friends. We were both quite young, and it was just petty drama that we have both moved past. After that, Bella began texting me again, and we slowly increased our communication. My friends advised me against speaking to Bella, citing her poor reputation at school as a not-so-nice person. However, I never witnessed that side of Bella myself, and we seemed to bond well. I struggled with anxiety, and my friends' disapproval made me hesitant to date her, especially given her poor reputation at school. She was known as somewhat of a seductress. Moving forward, Bella and I went through cycles of communicating with each other or not, until we reached the age of 17. Thinking back on her at this age, I decided to reach out and text her, feeling genuinely curious about her well-being. Over the years, we had connected over our mutual mental health issues and struggles at school. As neither of us had a widespread social circle, I was simply a bookish nerd. At the time, she was in a relationship but was receptive to conversing with me. I asked how she was and she replied that she was doing great, claiming it was the best she had ever felt. I recall attempting to end our conversation, but she seemed eager to keep it going, and truthfully, I wanted to keep discussing as well. Fast forward, Bella and I continued texting, with no infidelity on my part. I messaged her about trivial matters. However, I began to feel old emotions for her resurfacing. At this time, my anxiety lessened, my friend group strengthened, and I had moved past petty high school issues. Bella had a tumultuous relationship with her boyfriend, eventually breaking up with him, and then she expressed that she did not want anything serious but wanted to meet up with me. We met and quickly entered into a relationship. At that point, I was still a virgin and she was not, making her my first for various experiences. We dated during the summer before I was set to attend university, while she was a year behind me. I was relocating to another city, which was about an hour away, and we agreed to continue our relationship. When Freshers Week arrived, Bella had been somewhat distant the night before I left, but I attributed that to her worries about me starting university, which I sought to reassure her about. After settling in over the first few days, she remained aloof. Then, on the Tuesday of Freshers Week, 3 days into it, she dropped the bombshell that she wanted to end the relationship, claiming it was not going to work. In confusion, I asked her to wait until the weekend to discuss it. I would come home and we could make a decision then. She agreed. However, during that week, she cheated on me. I sensed this was happening, which felt horrible and suffocating, as my initial sense of independence was marred by stress about what I had believed was my best and healthiest relationship. When the weekend arrived, I met with her, and she confessed that she had cheated on me, not only during that week with a random person, but also multiple times with her ex while we were together. I had my suspicions, but she insisted that they had suffered a miscarriage while they were together, and he had been upset. I was young and naive, and I still am. Regardless, I stated that I wanted to continue the relationship. She consented but expressed a desire for an open relationship. I agreed, knowing it was a mistake. This arrangement did not last, as she said she felt guilty about it and whatever other excuses you want to attach to that. I cannot recall specifics as this was years ago. Following this, she initiated sexual activity without a condom. Up until that time, we had always used condoms. She urged me to finish inside her, saying she would handle the consequences. She was aware that this was a fetish of mine. After that point, I remained with Bella for 2 years, during which our relationship fluctuated mostly in the negative direction as I often felt the need to care for her. She revealed that she was struggling with a ketamine addiction, which she indeed was, insisting that we partake together. As her therapist encouraged her to have a physically safe person with her, this was also true. I had emails from her therapist. Bella frequently used ketamine, lied about it, and then became distant, which put me on edge. I communicated that she needed to be honest with me moving forward, and if she did not fulfill that requirement, I would end the relationship. She continued her dishonesty and I stayed committed. This exhausting cycle persisted for several months until I reached my breaking point, clearly indicating that this was the last straw. At that moment, she realized I was serious and managed to stay sober from ketamine for 6 months. This marked the beginning of the best period of our relationship. It was genuinely quite positive, although we still had frequent arguments, mainly instigated by my insecurities regarding her previous infidelity. During this time, I regretfully got blackout drunk and kissed another girl. I immediately told her. Her response was surprisingly calm. She emphatically assured me that it meant nothing and did not seem affected at all, which struck me as odd. As time passed, our relationship continued to improve, and I felt like we were starting to put our past behind us. However, during this time, I was battling severe depression and was not satisfied with my university experience. The tumultuous early months of our relationship had turned me into a recluse, leading me to smoke marijuana in my room, binge drink, and ironically use a lot of ketamine. To be honest, this had little to do with Bella. I now realized that I was already struggling with depression before entering the relationship. Things worsened when, in rapid succession, both my uncle and one of my closest friends passed away unexpectedly. I was having a very difficult time, and at that point Bella began to experience issues with her friends. She frequently approached me crying and sharing her own struggles with depression. I was not in a position to be a supportive partner and felt resentful that she burdened me with her problems at my lowest point. I believed I had endured all her issues this entire time, and the least she could do was be supportive while I coped with the loss of two people who were significant to me. She began to withdraw again, acting cold towards me. While we would often meet and there was no animosity, we both acted as if nothing had occurred. Bella consistently employed my kinks as a distraction whenever she did something that truly upset me. This trend persisted, and to be honest, being my first serious relationship and sexual experience, it effectively helped me forget about all the negative aspects of our relationship. Eventually, the time came for her to start university. I became increasingly worried that she would cheat on me or revert to using ketamine. She fervently and convincingly assured me that neither of those scenarios would happen. Fast forward, university began, and I started to piece my life back together following the deaths of those close to me. I acknowledged my depression and began to improve my circumstances by attending university and securing a job, with my grades and finances being my main concerns. I started to feel better. During my first week at work, which involved a 36-hour work week on top of my university commitments, I was anxious about my upcoming shift since it was entirely new to me. She texted me asking to speak. I replied that I could, but I had to work in 45 minutes, so it needed to be a quick call. She called and informed me that she had been using ketamine throughout the summer and had continued doing so while at university. I felt an unexpected surge of anger and asked her why she chose to tell me now. She replied that she could no longer keep it from me. I expressed my frustration that she had chosen the worst possible moment to share this information. She acknowledged that she knew this and I called her selfish. I ended the call and, feeling dejected, went to work. My shift was stressful, but the sense of accomplishment invigorated me. I met friends at the pub afterward, resolved to give the relationship until Christmas, this was late October, to reassess our situation. I began to focus on myself, diverting my attention from Bella and concentrating on my studies. We still met occasionally, but I had emotionally withdrawn from the relationship and no longer cared if it continued or ended. Christmas arrived and I was in a better place. My life was on an upward trajectory. However, I hesitated to break up with her, convincing myself that everything was fine. During the Christmas holidays, while staying at her family's house, her mother shouted up to her while we were in bed, asking, "Are you still meeting James tomorrow?" For context, James was one of her friends who had enabled her ketamine addiction, and she had distanced herself from him. Bella shouted a response and acted as if it hadn't happened. I inquired whether she planned to address it, and she feigned ignorance, knowing full well I disapproved of James. She informed me that he was moving abroad and that she wouldn't see him again. I told her that was fine, but she should have discussed it with me. When I asked if she would have revealed this to me had her mother not mentioned it, she admitted that she would not have. I decided to break up with her, tired of all the ongoing lies. I left. Once again, I experienced cold feet and we talked it over. She promised not to deceive me again. The issue with James stemmed from her dishonesty. I would have tried to persuade her against seeing him, but ultimately she was entitled to make her own choices. At this juncture, the relationship was effectively dead. She tried to act like a good partner, but the spark had long since diminished. As far as I know, during those last few months, there were no further issues or lies on her part. However, my self-esteem and trust had taken an excessive beating. I gradually began to resent her, realizing how much she had worn me down with her continuous dishonesty. I struggled to look myself in the mirror, feeling ashamed for allowing someone to treat me so poorly. At this point, I felt finished with everything and ended up traveling around Portugal for 2 weeks. Throughout this trip, I gained some much-needed perspective. My mental health had worsened somewhat due to overworking myself to fund the trip, and the grief for my deceased friend resurfacing after Christmas. This was part of why I had gotten back together with Bella. My time in Portugal was remarkably healing, as cliché as that may sound. I felt revitalized, and during this time I even missed Bella, believing this indicated that I still cared for her and was willing to give our relationship one last chance. However, this sentiment faded quickly once we spent another week together. Fast forward a few weeks, and I began to gather the courage to do what I knew needed to be done. I started to open up to my friends about what had transpired in our relationship. Until now, I had kept it entirely to myself. They reassured me that she had treated me poorly and that what happened was not healthy. Ultimately, we broke up, and that was that. I felt no resentment towards her, and after a period of no contact, I suggested we attempt to be friends since we had known each other for so long. I expressed my best wishes for her and emphasized that the breakup was amicable. That period of no contact lasted for 2 months until I reached out to return her belongings. She responded by saying that she did not want to communicate with me and was openly hostile. I became upset, feeling that I did not deserve such a reaction. After that, I gave up. I have been seeing people casually. I dated one girl for 2 months, but neither of us wanted a serious relationship after both ending long-term ones. Since the breakup, my life has improved tremendously. I have genuinely transformed into a different person. I do not miss her and have no desire to reconcile. So if that is the case, why do I still dream about her? Why do I still think of her? I am upset about the entire situation. I honestly did my best to be a good partner while it feels as if she has moved on and I cannot. Was I a perfect partner? Far from it. Did I act foolishly at times? Absolutely. But I always made an effort. What do you all recommend I do to heal from this? Story 2. I caught my girlfriend of 3 years FaceTiming and sexting a coworker. We haven't been good in months, she said, trying to flip the blame. Now I'm left with Elise, heartbreak, and her begging to work things out after I demanded she move out. What will I do next? I edited the post to add the new update below the original post text. I am unsure if I did this correctly. I am completely shocked and in total disbelief. I believed we had a wonderful relationship, one where we could have disagreements without arguing 95% of the time, where there was affection, care, equality in chores and finances, and where we could generally handle life maturely as a team. I thought we were building a strong future together. This evening, while I was working at my side job, my girlfriend of almost 3 years went to a concert with her mother and sister. When I came home from work, they had all returned from the concert and were eating food. The others left shortly after I arrived, and then my girlfriend quickly told me she was going to the library room in our apartment building to read. I found it strange, as she would usually be excited to share all the details of her night with me, so I informed her that I was going to bed. As I did my laundry before sleeping, I began to feel uneasy but tried to dismiss it. I cannot shake the feeling, therefore I decided to listen at the door of the library, and I heard her talking on the phone or video calling someone. Immediately my heart began to race. I hoped it was just her sister or a friend, but the more I listened, the more I could deduce who it was, not based on the context. Now here's where some background information is necessary. A couple of weeks ago, she represented her company at a festival. She was paired with a coworker from another city to run the company's booth together. According to her at the time, he was nice and friendly but somewhat shy. I actually met my girlfriend and him at the after party and didn't notice anything inappropriate between them. Anyway, as I listened, it became obvious that she was flirting with this person on the phone as they talked about work. Eventually, during one of her stories about how much fun they had while working together that day, I realized who she was speaking to. The more I listened, the more it nauseated me. It felt as though I was trapped in a horrific nightmare. I could not walk away because I needed to confirm what I was hearing, and the longer I stayed, the more incriminating things she said. I could only hear her talking. They reminisced about how flirtatious they had been that day and how they had their hands all over each other. He must have commented on what she was wearing as she began gushing about what she would wear for him and remarks like that. She even played a song for him that she has mentioned really turns her on, so I assumed she was showing him her body on video call. At that moment, my heart broke. Then they began making plans for this Friday, with her saying she could swap a shift, and she even mentioned how she would lie to me about her plans for that night. I could not believe it. It seemed so malicious and unapologetic. Finally, after more than an hour, they hung up, and she walked out to find me sitting outside the door. She startled when she saw me, of course. Me, how was readings? Her's good. Me, I heard everything. I cannot believe this is happening. We need to go upstairs and you need to tell me what is going on. We went back to our apartment unit, and I first asked if they had done anything physical. She said no. I continued to press her, obviously not believing her. Shortly thereafter, she attempted to turn the situation around, claiming we had not been good in months, that I never listened to her, and that we had lost our emotional connection. I was unaware of this, as by her own admission, she has difficulty addressing issues. Everything seemed normal to me, considering our differing work schedules. I thought if either of us had a problem, we would work on it together until it was resolved. Apparently, that was not the case. I did not allow her to shift the blame onto me and continued to seek information about what she had done. She was adamant that she did nothing physical and that only a couple of days ago did she start talking to him in this manner when he confessed his feelings for her, and she admitted to him that she found him attractive. At that point, I felt like many details were being withheld. I asked her if she had told me everything, and she replied yes. So casually I got up, picked up her phone, and said, "I assume if that is everything, you won't mind me reading your messages with him." She immediately jumped up and began demanding that I return her phone. I stated, "Either you tell me what you are hiding or I will search through it." We went back and forth until she finally confided that it was an emotional connection and that it was embarrassing, which was why I could not see it. I continued to press her, as she still would not let me open it without appearing ready to attack me. I then asked if she was sending explicit messages to him, and that was what she was trying to hide. Eventually, she admitted to doing that as well. Clearly, I was still only receiving partial truths, as each time I questioned her, the story changed and became worse. I continued to ask what else she was hiding without receiving any answers. She apologized and stated that she needed to go to bed for work tomorrow. I gave up, returned her phone because I was emotionally drained and was over it all. So now it is almost 6 a.m. as I write this, but it is helping to distract me somehow. I am now contemplating how we have 4 full months left on our lease and what I should do. Thankfully, most of our finances are still separate, aside from a home savings account that we both contributed to, which I invested for us, and I will be sending her back the amount she contributed. I could technically afford our lease on my own, but it would be tight, and I would no longer be able to continue saving money as I do now. I also do not think she would be able to afford a place on her own. I cannot determine how I feel right now amidst a mix of anger, betrayal, grief, and disbelief. I never believed that this relationship would end like this or that she could ever do this to me. It also hurts that she was able to maintain a normal demeanor while doing this behind my back. I also do not believe for a moment that she did not do anything physical, given how flirtatious she was and her admission of sending explicit messages. That is probably the hardest part to cope with, as she will not allow me to see her phone or confess what she is hiding. It is baffling when she claims to be genuinely sorry and feels terrible while also continuing to conceal something from me. She has probably already deleted the messages and changed her passcode anyway. Any words of wisdom would be greatly appreciated, and I will try to answer any questions anyone might have in case I am missing anything. Our lease ends on July 31. Both of our names are on it, but I could take it over if I can get her to move out. It just will not be financially ideal for me. Summary: I discovered my girlfriend of 3 years FaceTiming and sending explicit messages to a coworker. She will not admit to anything further, but she aggressively refused to let me see her phone. New update 18 hours later. I still have not slept, not for lack of trying. I want to write this while it is still fresh. I left early in the morning after she fell asleep to go for a walk and get coffee. I spent time at the cafe while updating those close to me about what is happening and replying to Reddit. I waited until I was sure she had left for work to return home, shower, and try to get some rest. I spent most of the day making an exit plan and considering all the advice about how to approach the living situation. I had already stated we were finished before she went to bed, but I do not think she believed me. When she finally got home from work, she sat on the couch across from me and said hi. She then began to sulk on the couch until I walked away while waiting for her to say anything first. I ran out of time as I needed to leave for volleyball practice, so I just issued the ultimatum: either you move out or I will. I added that I do not think she can afford this place on her own. I believe the reality of the situation finally hit her. She immediately broke down in tears and started pleading to work things out. I was emotionless and informed her that these were the consequences of her choices. I left for volleyball practice as she followed me to the door, crying and begging. She tried to ask where I was going, and I told her it was none of her business. I also told her on my way out that I expect her to have a plan and to start accepting the consequences of her choices. When I returned, she attempted again to plead for us to work things out. I reminded her that any traces of compassion I had and any desire to continue anything with her were erased. When I recalled the disgusting things she was saying to that man on the other side of the door and the thought of whatever else she is still concealing. I told her, as many of you wisely advised, that I do not even want to know what she is hiding anymore, because the fact that she continues to keep things from me is confirmation enough about what she did. With that, I repeated that she needed to move out as soon as possible, as I can no longer tolerate living with her. I set up my air mattress in my office and went to bed. Today, April 1, I worked from home as usual, went to the gym, and planned to spend the evening with one of my good friends. I also called and left a message for my building manager that I would like to discuss my lease and its renewal, intentionally vague until I can explain the situation, so they do not think I am trying to break the lease. I also texted my ex-girlfriend this. You need to pack your things and figure out where you are going. As soon as you leave, I will return your 2,000 for however many days are left in the month for the rent you paid. She stated that she is looking for places. I asked if she could stay with her mother, but she said she could not. I think she still has not spoken to them, as her sister texted me yesterday saying she is also very upset with her because she noticed that while they were at the concert that night, my ex was on her phone the entire time and even received a phone call in front of her sister. She confronted my ex about it, and my ex exploded on her, threatening her if she told me. She shared similar experiences with me and said that she is here for me. I thanked her and informed her that since she is so close to my ex, it would probably be best to limit our communication. She agreed and wished me the best. Now essentially, all of her close family is not speaking to her or supporting her. I do not feel pleased that she is suffering so intensely now because of her actions, but I also do not care, as those are her problems now. There are numerous ways and reasons I could choose to be petty and utterly harm her further, but I believe the direct consequences are sufficient. For example, in January, I took her on a 3-week vacation, covering almost everything except for her flight and some of the accommodations she split with me. I told her at the time that she did not need to worry about reimbursing me, so I will keep my word, as she certainly does not have the funds to pay me back, even if I retain the 2,000 I invested for her. Ideally, she will move out by this weekend, but I am not getting my hopes up just yet. I will have to oversee the move out to ensure none of my belongings are taken. I possess most of the furniture and kitchen items from when I was living alone. I have a solid memory of what she purchased versus what I bought. The items we jointly bought for this place will have to be negotiated. Essentially, the only thing I will need to buy is a new bed since we were using hers. Thank you to everyone for your comments, direct messages, and concern. It has made it much easier to maintain a clear mind about all of this. Summary: the consequences are here again. I ended my relationship with her, she cried and pleaded, her family is now refusing to speak to her, and I am now waiting for her to move out so that I can move on with my life. Story 3. I just found out my wife cheated on me with our mechanic while I was away. I never had someone understand me like that, she said, leaving me torn between love and betrayal. Now I'm questioning if I can forgive her or if it's time to let go. How do I proceed? Good afternoons. In summary, my lifelong partner betrayed my trust and revealed it to me this morning. I am grappling with the possibility of divorce or finding a way forward while staying with her, fully aware that our relationship will never be the same. I would greatly appreciate any advice. I apologize in advance for the lengthy post. This is my first time sharing something like this, so please bear with me. Background. My wife and I began our relationship during our senior year of high school in October 2019. From the moment we started dating until our graduation, we moved quickly and felt a profound connection developing. She was my first kiss and my first intimate experience within a week of beginning our relationship. She had endured an abusive relationship during her middle school and early high school years. I love her for her intelligence, sense of humor, and shared values. Overall, I cherish the time spent with her. She is my best friend. We attended different colleges because she aspired to be an accountant while I aimed for a military career at a service academy. We agreed to attempt a long-distance relationship, believing that if we could make it through that, we could handle anything together. During every break I had, I physically visited her and we practiced living together. While apart, we spent nearly every moment hanging out virtually, playing video games, watching shows, and having conversations. We exhibited a kind of codependency and were quite clingy. Neither of us permitted the other to have close friendships with individuals of the opposite sex, as it caused jealousy and discomfort, thus we abstained completely. Around our sophomore year, we decided to marry as soon as possible after graduation, as marriage was not allowed at the service academy. I made an official proposal between my junior and senior summers. During our junior year, my wife participated in an accounting club that organized an event in Orlando, requiring a several-hour drive. She requested to carpool with another male attendee. I conveyed my discomfort regarding their 4-hour drive alone together. She ultimately drove alone and was fine. In my senior year, I registered to provide rides from the airport after returning from a break at the service academy. A freshman girl and her friends signed up to ride with me. The difference in maturity between a freshman and a senior at a service academy is significant, akin to the difference between a 40-year-old and a 20-year-old. Several individuals dropped out of the sign-up, leaving only one freshman. After discussing it with my significant other, she felt uncomfortable just as I had felt before. However, knowing that the cost of an Uber for the freshman was 100 and that I had signed up to be a driver weeks beforehand, with her knowledge, I decided not to cancel the day before for the freshman. Although my significant other was upset with my decision, it seemed to change her perspective, and she began to trust me around other girls, no longer feeling jealous. I, however, remained unchanged. Recent past. We were married in May 2024, moving to my first duty station in Honolulu, Hawaii. We loved it for its weather and activities. Being frugal, we purchased a 2000 Toyota Sienna which required significant repairs. My wife, who is quite unique, often takes it upon herself to deal with bugs in the house and expressed an interest in mechanical work. The vehicle had several issues: faulty axles, suspension problems, and side mirrors held together with duct tape. Yet we loved it. She eagerly began attempting to repair the car by renting space and tools at a mechanical shop. In September, a man who worked there, whom I will refer to as Guy, not his real name, was very enthusiastic about helping her. She enjoyed learning from him. When she shared her experiences, I felt uncomfortable because I disapproved of her having male friends. However, since his expertise was free, I begrudgingly accepted it. Information about Guy: a 40-year-old man in a tumultuous marriage where his wife is even clingier than I am regarding relationships with the opposite sex. She has cheated on him multiple times. She continued working on the car with Guy each week, making substantial progress. She would bring him food while he assisted her. I was always informed. Eventually, she mentioned that Guy had become her friend. For context, my wife has no friends in Honolulu and has struggled to make connections since moving there. She often finds it challenging to relate to people. Although I was happy for her to have a friend, I felt increasingly uncomfortable with the developing relationship and expressed my concerns. I established boundaries such as no one-on-one time and limiting their texting. They were in contact every day. She pleaded with me, citing her joy at having finally made a friend. I began to realize that my reluctance to accept their friendship stemmed from my insecurities. I struggle with the fear of developing feelings for other women, which is why I keep my distance from them. I am friendly but do not pursue friendships, if that makes sense. My wife and I often sought advice on Reddit and found mixed opinions about whether to allow significant others to be friends with members of the opposite sex. Some people insisted that trust in the partner was essential, while others warned against the slippery slope leading to emotional infidelity. While I understood the logic behind trusting friendships across genders, I couldn't ignore the anxiety and insecurity it caused me. By December, the boundaries I had established were consistently challenged. She expressed that these limitations upset her, and I worked on becoming comfortable with their friendship, subsequently relaxing the boundaries. In December, my job required me to be stationed on a boat in Baltimore for the foreseeable future. She came with me until she had to leave to start her first job as an accountant in early January. I was supposed to return to Hawaii in early March, but my return date has continually been extended to June at the earliest. During a car ride in January while I was on the East Coast and she was in Hawaii with a 6-hour time difference, she revealed that Guy and she had a connection that she had never felt before, that he understood her like no one else. This was the breaking point for me. I issued an ultimatum, me or him. She chose me, vowing to end her relationship with him. I could see that the ultimatum devastated her. About 30 minutes later, I called back to express that I needed to work on my trust issues and that if Guy were a woman, I would have no problem with her friendship. In fact, I would be happy for her to find someone with whom she connected so deeply. Consequently, I told her she could continue the friendship without limitations. We started therapy around this time in January and February to address our issues, though our sessions mostly served as a platform to communicate our struggles without reaching resolutions. Since that conversation, she told me she hasn't felt the same love for me. The ultimatum I presented had seemingly soured her feelings toward me irreparably. She no longer looked forward to our calls or virtual hangouts, which crushed me. We continued to connect daily and watch shows together, but something felt different. During this period, she began expressing that she was no longer physically attracted to me and didn't feel the same love. This deeply hurt me. When I asked how I could improve, she stated that our love languages were different, mine being quality time and hers being acts of service. She suggested I could be more considerate. Fast forward to early March when I was finally able to take a vacation to visit her for a week and a half. I made an effort to address the issues she mentioned, and she acknowledged my efforts. We had a fantastic time together, and though she said it was enjoyable to see me, she also found it stressful, which saddened me. Last night, we discussed the reality that she doesn't love me in the same way since the ultimatum in January. I asked her if, even if I perfectly improved my acts of service and became more considerate, would that restore her love? She admitted she still felt a deeper connection with Guy and was uncertain if she would ever feel the same toward me. In that moment, I had a breakthrough. Despite my love for her, I realized I needed it to be reciprocated. I stated that when I return to Hawaii, I aim to exceed her expectations, but if, after a couple of months, she still does not love me in the same way, we should reevaluate our marriage. At the end of our conversation, she mentioned that she suddenly felt attracted to me like she hadn't since before the ultimatum, and my recognition of our issues and sincerity in discussion had made an impact on her. I said goodnight, unsure of how to feel about her sudden admission. Later, I received a phone call in the middle of the night, revealing she was struggling to fall asleep and feeling dread 2 a.m. my time, 8 p.m. her time. I told her we could talk in the morning when I was awake. The confession and infidelity. I sensed something was wrong and I encouraged her to confess. Since the January ultimatum to our March reunion, she admitted that Guy developed feelings for her, and she took advantage of this by holding his hand and being physically affectionate. After our March visit, she had sexual intercourse with him 4 times, twice at our apartment. They used protection when he ejaculated inside her or employed the withdrawal method. I inquired about these details. After receiving this news, I expressed the need to reflect with my support network, including my mother, father, and best friend. Surprisingly, I remained composed during the call with her, but I broke down when seeking support from others. I am still torn between considering divorce or a complete separation versus staying with her if she ends her relationship with Guy and we seek professional help. Another significant issue arises when I ask her if she would be willing to cease her friendship with Guy. She hesitates. She feels profound remorse and wishes things had not escalated to this point. She feels terrible for me and states I do not deserve any of this. I still love her deeply, and it is difficult to disregard the 5 years we have spent together, which fuels my desire to stay with her. Please help me. Additional notes. She recently obtained her green card through her father and her application during our March vacation. She did not utilize me for the application process at all. She suffers from depression and previously experienced suicidal thoughts. She suspects she may have bipolar disorder. Additionally, we differ significantly on the value of having children. For me, it is a crucial aspect and vision for my future. In contrast, she is uncertain about wanting children but thinks her perspective might change since she is still young. I have determined that my desire to be with her outweighs my wish to have children, though it remains a source of inner conflict. I have continually asked her whether she would consider being with Guy if I were not in the picture. She consistently responded with disgust, claiming his age was off-putting and that they were merely friends. Last night, when I asked if they had engaged in any physical intimacy, she lied and said she hugged him once when he was feeling down about issues with his wife. Story 4. Met Mike during my work trip to the Philippines at 21. We clicked instantly. After heart-to-heart chats and a tearful goodbye, he confessed, "I've never felt this before." Now, thousands of miles apart, I'm left asking, can this be love or just a fleeting moment? I, a 21-year-old female, recently went on a work holiday. I am a travel agent, so this is not unusual to the Philippines from Australia. The holiday included a group of 24 other agents, all aimed at exploring and enjoying the country. On the first night, I met everyone, including a 23-year-old male. I will refer to him as Mike for the purpose of this story. It is important to mention that we had assigned roommates. However, due to my last name and an odd number of people, I ended up with a solo room. I agreed with 2 other girls that we would rotate the room each place we stayed. On the second night of the 9, Mike and I grew closer as friends as we appeared to be the only night owls. We talked late into the night and spent hours sitting on the beach, but I did not think of it romantically. The next day, we spent the entire day conversing and engaging in playful banter, but once again just as friends. Night 4 is where everything began. After having a fair amount of drinks, dancing, and singing, we were the last ones standing. The island featured what I will refer to as a bird's nest, which allowed us to look at the stars, and of course, we went up there. As we lay on the wooden planks, gazing at the stars and talking about absolute nonsense, we slowly started drifting off to sleep when he pulled me in to lay on his chest. I am not one to assume people's feelings, so I tried not to dwell on it. After about an hour of drifting in and out of sleep, he ducked to his room to get pillows and brought them back for us. That night was relatively chilly, so we slept pretty close to each other, but not cuddling. At this point, it must have been around 5 a.m. when I thought I woke up to him kissing my forehead. However, given all the drinks, I was unsure if I was just imagining it. It was around 6:30 a.m. when the sun began to rise and I decided to go to bed. The next day went on as normal, with talking, laughing, and sharing stories, etc. That night, there was a group of 5 of us who decided to go to karaoke. By this time, we had formed a little friend group that included Mike, another boy, and the 2 other girls with whom I was rotating rooms. It was my night for the solo room. Mike went out onto the balcony and I chose to follow him, as I had been contemplating the forehead kisses all day and wanted to ask him about it. When I inquired, he became very nervous and embarrassed, apologizing if it made me uncomfortable. I reassured him that it was okay and that if I considered it an issue, I would have mentioned it sooner. However, he remained very reserved afterward. I got the impression that he might have regretted it, so I decided to leave it alone. Later that night, our group returned to the hotel that had a rooftop bar. The bar was closed by that point, and we were the only ones there, but we had brought our own drinks. And gradually, everyone trickled off until it was once again just Mike and me. We spent hours playing our favorite songs and discussing our lives. We lay on a lounge bed and I was resting on his chest again with considerably less alcohol involved this time. We were engaged in a rather serious conversation about my attempted suicide a few years ago, and he expressed his gratitude that I didn't succeed, as otherwise he wouldn't have me in his life right now. We shared a flirty moment saying, "I'm glad you're here with me right now." He then played Gone by Ziggy Alberts, and we stared into each other's eyes for a few minutes before sharing the most passionate kiss of my life. Eventually, we made our way back to my room, and you can probably guess what happened next. He stayed in my room for the night and we cuddled until morning, had sex again, and then he sneaked back into his room. We decided to keep it between just us for now and not disclose it to our friend group. The following day was filled with hikes, beaches, and waterholes. We maintained the same fun energy, exchanging little glances throughout the day and sharing cheeky smiles when no one was watching. On the same day, we traveled back to the mainland, a 6-hour drive, sitting next to each other and listening to music and podcasts during the ride. We didn't return to the hotel until 3 a.m., at which point he went to his room and I went to mine. The next 2 days, we attended a music festival. The first night of the festival was my night for the solo room. We had an incredible time dancing and singing all day before our group came back to my room for after partying. As on every other night, it was just the two of us. We ordered room service, ate in bed, and listened to music once more. At one point, we realized we only had one more night together before returning home, with me on one side of the country and him on the other. We both cried, telling each other that we may never see one another again, expressing that we didn't want to lose each other and how unfair it felt to have him brought into my life like this, only to be torn away. After an hour of tears, we went to bed, holding each other tightly. Once again, we hooked up and he sneaked out early the next morning to return to his room. Little did we know that our friend group had been speculating about us and whether something was happening between Mike and me. That day, one of the girls directly asked me and I answered yes. She was thrilled and wanted me to have the solo room for the last night. The entire day turned into a celebration for us, but I was mentally preparing for the possibility of not seeing him again. We continued as normal, acting like best friends for the day while discreetly hiding our relationship from the rest of the group. We returned to the room for after partying once again and decided to play 21 questions, which ultimately turned into an interrogation of Mike and me. Questions included, how was the sex? When did this all begin? What will you do when you go home? I looked at Mike to have him respond, but he had no words, which made my heart drop. At some point, the others left and it was just the two of us for the last time. We lay in bed, holding each other until morning. When we awakened, I climbed on top of him for a hug and he thought it was for sex. I simply climbed off and said no, and he was completely fine with it. I suppose I just wanted our last memory together to be more meaningful. Eventually, it was time to head to the airport. My flight was 2 hours after his, but we all went together and spent some time in one of the lounges. We held hands under the table and gazed into each other's eyes, reminiscing about the first night we kissed, although this time lacking any excitement. Eventually, the boys had to leave for their flight and we had to say goodbye. I gave him the biggest hug and a small kiss before they departed. Perhaps 2 minutes later, the other boy messaged to say that Mike was crying because he didn't want to leave. Another minute later, I received a paragraph from Mike addressed to me. This is difficult. I wish I could explain everything better in person, but I struggle to find the right words. The last thing I expected on this trip was to meet someone like you. From our conversations about God knows what at 3 a.m. in Port Barton to the next day, it all seemed different to me. I loved spending time with you and I wanted to be with you. The best night day at the island, falling asleep on a treetop with you in my arms, was probably the tipping point. I've never felt this level of emotion before, and that's why I am so unsettled. I am incredibly grateful to have met you and to have spent time with you. As silly as it sounds, I will miss our eyes meeting and smiling at each other. I will miss everything about you. I genuinely hope this isn't goodbye but merely a farewell. Please don't be a stranger. I would do anything to listen to some Ziggy and discuss Jasper one more time in the early hours of the morning. Thank you for everything. You have truly changed my life. Keep on going. Love, Mike. All I can say is that I reread this message numerous times during my 8-hour flight home. I felt so numb. No words can adequately describe the connection we shared and how quickly I fell for him. The moment I landed back in Australia, I turned my phone on quickly, hoping for a message from him, and there it was. The messages were short, merely asking how we were doing. That night, as I got into bed, nothing felt real. I broke down as I realized I wouldn't be waking up with Mike the next morning, that I wouldn't be spending the day with him and may never spend another day with him again. I expressed all of this to him, and he conveyed that he felt the same way, that he missed me terribly and would do anything to see me again. It has been nearly a week since I returned home, and every day I look at our pictures together, listen to Gone by Ziggy Alberts, and constantly check my phone for his messages. We even started emailing each other through our work emails so we can communicate during the day. I suppose my question from all of this is, how do I navigate this? Is this what love is, or is it too soon to know? It's not as if he is just a quick hour's drive away. It is a 6-hour flight one way. Could we make this work, and if so, how? I have never encountered a situation like this, but I truly feel it could be something significant.